Today, I'm going to talk about how I made this into this. A lot of people have reached out to me asking me to do a behind the scenes video on my shipping container build out. And today is that day. We're going to be talking about the planning, the process, the design, the pitfalls, as well as budgeting. But before that, please subscribe and ring the bell for content related to film scoring and music production. Links in the description. Let's jump on in. Adams Audio has graciously partnered with me in this video and is giving away a pair of T5V near field monitors as well as a T10S subwoofer to one lucky winner. The only thing you need to provide is your first and last name and an email address to enter. And best of all, it's completely free. There are no strings attached. Just enter via the link for a chance to win, and the winner will be announced on March 25th. Good luck, and I hope you all enjoy the video. Why would I build a container studio? The answer is simple. Over the past 5 years, I've spent over $30,000 in rent. And while that is a write-off, it's still money that's being wasted, being thrown down the toilet. I own my own home, and I had space on my property to build a music studio. But I knew that doing a traditional building, the foundation, the permitting, the plans, all of it, it was going to be very expensive. If I moved, I'd have to start all over again. An editor I knew mentioned something about a shipping container editing bay. To be able to have a shell and to be able to move it, it was exactly what I needed. I did some research online and I found a couple other people who had made container studios, and I reached out to them and picked their brains for a couple months. And from there, I was able to draw out my basic kind of sketch for my build out, as well as do a detailed itemized list. And once I had my container purchased and all the materials ready to go and a start date in sight, the build out was ready to begin. The container arrived on site and was placed on cinder blocks and leveled. Once the container was set, we started by shaving the access spray foam off of the side walls so the framing would be level. After that, we put pressboard down on top of the marine plywood floors to add more mass to the base of the container floor. Once the floors and sidewalls were prepped, we started working on the framing. We drilled 2x4s to the outer perimeter of the container floor, making sure they didn't touch the metal, as we wanted the walls to float inside the container walls, creating a room within a room. Once the 2x4s were set, we brought the framing inside the container and attached it to the floor 2x4s. We had to build the framing outside as the container was too small to build it inside of it, something that I didn't think about in the planning stages. Once the walls were secure, we attached the ceiling frame on the top of the frame sidewalls, making sure that they also didn't touch the sidewalls. Before I move on, I want to give you the specs of my container. I went with a 20-foot high cube. The exterior dimensions are 20 feet long by 9.6 feet tall by 8 feet wide. And the interior dimensions are 19.5 feet long by 8.10 feet tall by 7.8 feet wide. Since space was such an issue, I really had to take account of everything that went inside the container, from the spray foam to the framing to the drywall thickness to even the sound panels that I was putting up. Everything added up in the end. Once the framing was in place, then we started all the electrical work. I dug a trench from the container to the foundation of my house, and we ran power and Ethernet through a PVC pipe up into the container. We also cut a hole in the floor to run the drainage line for the mini split, as well as to run the power and the piping to the outside HVAC blower. I also chose to use a concrete slab as opposed to a metal chassis that you attach to a wall, because I didn't want to have any additional noise introduced to the container. As you see, we have power. Once we had power, we used acoustic caulk on all the exposed joints, putty on all the outlet boxes, and stuffed the walls with safe and sound. And I also double stuffed the ceiling as there was more space. After that, we installed an exterior outswing door. The doors are very expensive, especially outswing ones, for some weird reason. This was one of my first pitfalls that I'll discuss later. After that, we put up Hardie board on the outside walls of the container, as it was the cheapest and strongest option. For those of you who don't know, which was me included, Hardie board is made of cement, sand, and cellulose fibers, so it's very reliable. Then came the most grueling part of all, the mass-loaded vinyl. When I tell you this stuff is heavy, it's an understatement. I had ordered 11 rolls and they each weighed 100 pounds apiece. We applied it to every space of the container, from the floor to the ceiling to the walls. Every space was covered. After that daunting task, we did the drywall and the mudding, painted the walls and ceiling, installed the engineered hardwood flooring, used MDF for the window trim, which was also a mistake, did the baseboards, and built an interior door out of a solid core door. After that was done, we hung the interior mini split HVAC unit, and we were done. With the container complete, the next step was hanging up the sound panels. I had reached out to GIK a couple months before I started working on the project to help me spec out my room and find the optimal panel placement for my space. And with that said, we came up with 21 panels. And once the panels were hung and I moved all my stuff in, the space was ready to go. All in all, it took me about 2 months to build the space, working on weekends and intermittently throughout the week here and there. Once I was moved in and working, I tried a couple different configurations with the space, and I've added some new things as I found need for them. I installed 2 shelves for my synths and removed the old sideboards that I used for them in the past to save space. I also hung my string instruments on the walls instead of using the rock stand that I had as well. So now the budgeting aspect. Is this easily doable? Yes and no. I looked into a few companies that offer custom shipping container builds that are turnkey, and they were in the $50,000 range start out. I'd even seen some that were like $100,000. And for a small business, that's just a lot of money to spend. In total, I had $5,600 in my container, and that included the windows, the spray foam installation, and delivery. I had $6,000 in building material, and I had $2,500 in custom sound panels made from GIK. In retrospect, I could have made the panels myself, but I wanted a very polished look, and I didn't have a bandwidth to take on another project, so I outsourced it. If you have woodworking skills, basic HVAC skills, some electrical skills, then yes, this is doable. I had my brother and my uncle help me in building this out, and had I not had their help, I would probably still be doing the framing. At the end of the day, with everything totaled out, the container cost me $14,684.39. The reason we were able to do it at that price is because we did all of the work ourselves and didn't outsource anything, minus the panels. I probably would have saved maybe $1,500 had I chose to do the panels myself. What I learned from this process is that there's always pitfalls in the build out process. The first pitfall was lumber cost. For some reason, everybody and their brother was deciding to build in 2020, and the cost of building material was through the roof. A 2x4 cost $6. And with those inflated prices, my budget for building material went up $800. Number 2, exterior door. I went with a pre-hung door, relatively cheap exterior steel door, but come to find that it wasn't truly steel, just the outside of the door was steel. Moral of the story is do your research on doors. I built an interior door out of a solid core door, and that saved me in the end. There's a lot of science behind doors. You have to have a lot of maths, and the best way to do it is to build or spend $5,000 on a door, which I didn't have to spend. Number 3, MDF trim on the windows. After the drywall was finished, I painted over a rainy weekend. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't have a dehumidifier in the room, and because there was so much condensation outside, there was a lot of condensation in the room, and the MDF soaked that up and it split. And we had to rip the MDF out and put PVC in. There are some things that I'd like to have done to the space. Over time, I will get to them. I would love to have a neon sign for my exterior wall outside of my container. I have the electrical ready to go for it. I just need to purchase it. And I'm also gonna add a couple more panels as well. I'm gonna run some down the center, and then I'm gonna have some above the windows, and then some next to my piano skeleton as well for additional sound deadening. And I'm also going to do an exterior mural on the side of my container for fun. At the end of the day, you don't have to work at a fancy post house or have some off-site studio. You can work in your bedroom, and there's nothing wrong with that. I did this because I had a need, and the options presented to me were not viable anymore. But I wanted to share the journey and how I created the studio to inspire you to think outside the box, literally. This space has been such a huge blessing for me and my family, and I hope this video has given you some creative outlook on your current space. If there's any questions I didn't answer, please comment below or shoot me a message and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks so much for watching. There's a link to previous videos I've done in case you want to check them out. Please like and subscribe, and be sure to follow me on my socials. Thanks for stopping by, and have a great day.